Hi, I'm John Atack,
I'm Sam Atack.
and this is an Opening Minds presentation about seduction and recruitment into authoritarian groups and relationships. And we've got a list here. Now, but before we get into the list, there is a point where people are more vulnerable to being seduced or recruited into an abusive, toxic relationship or group, so-called a destructive cult group, or just a horrible intimate relationship with somebody. And it's usually because there's been a significant change in routine. People often have the misconception that cult members are weak people who are ill-informed, uneducated, and gullible, basically. But they're usually just people who've been through some crisis in life or just some change. And that change can be, you move to another place, you take a new job. Adolescents are particularly vulnerable. There's something about adolescence where your infatuation levels are much higher. And old people are particularly vulnerable too. But everybody is vulnerable. If your routines change significantly, then you will somehow be more able to take on new ideas, new relationships. So, first year in college is the standard recruiting place. The Lyndon LaRouche, the political kind of right-wing guy, and the LaRouches, they used to look through obituary columns and go and visit widows and widowers because that change makes somebody more vulnerable. So that's what's happened, and then this happens.
Recruitment begins with contact in person or through advertising.
Well, okay, it's simple enough, but they've got to say hello to you somehow. Could be through an advertisement, could be through an online. I think this is becoming more and more where it is happening. A website, a YouTube channel, such as this one, but honestly, we're not trying to recruit you to do anything. Just send the money. It can happen through a leaflet, flyer, somebody walking up to you on the street, knocking on your door, what have you. But contact is the first point.
The recruiter may give you something, a pamphlet, joss sticks, flowers, or cheap jewellery, so that you'll feel you must give something in return.
Giving something in return. The principle of reciprocity in Robert Cialdini's excellent book Influence. Normal social, pro-social, friendly people feel, oh, you gave me something, I should give you something back. I'm told that the term joss stick is not necessarily known in the United States, so that's an incense stick. And that leads us to the Institute for the Study of Krishna Consciousness, or ISKCON. It's their name, I didn't give it to them. Or the Krishnas, as they're broadly known, who've actually split into a variety of sects. But back when I was a young boy in the last century, we had tall stovepipe hats and went around in horses and carts. Krishna monks roamed the streets with their little top knots and their orange robes, and they would give you a pack of spiritual sky incense sticks and then expect you to give them more than they were worth. They were actually quite good incense sticks, so if there are any Krishnas watching, don't sue me for denigrating a product. They were good. Only, of course, all incense sticks put smoke into the atmosphere, which is bad for our lungs. Oh dear. Never mind. They would give you that. I had a friend who they gave him some incense. Guy gave him some incense sticks. He gave him a record of them singing, "Oh Govinda, Govinda, Govinda," like that. Really. And I think it gave him like a scarf or something, like a Krishna football scarf. I don't know what they were. And my friend just went, "Oh, thanks very much," and walked off. And the guy came running after him saying, "Aren't you going to give me something?" And he went, "Oh, I thought you were giving me these things." The principle of reciprocity. They might give you something. Now, with pickup artists, these deplorable people who try to hypnotize other people into having sex with them, they will tell you to carry around little bits of cheap jewellery so that you can offer this thing and create a reciprocity. Watch out for it. Take the stuff they give you, put it on eBay.
Rapport is established by agreement and flattery.
The principle of liking, simple enough in Robert Cialdini's book. The Al-Qaeda recruiting manual has this one in too, that you don't, anything that you disagree with, you don't comment on, and anything you do agree with, you really underline. You know, I like the colour red. Oh, me too. You know, that is very deliberate. Then there's the flattery, which is they're trained, recruiters are trained to find nice things to say about you. So, you know, "Ooh, your hair's looking rather nice today, John. Thank you. You're so articulate, or you're so clever, or you're whatever." It's flattery. They're trained to do it. When somebody you don't know starts pouring forth compliments towards you, it's time to say, "What's your game?"
Seducers or recruiters often touch you physically to establish rapport.
This is my own son trying to establish rapport with me. How crazy
I've
is
never developed it so
No,
far.
poor thing. Never
I
mind.
feel bad.
Actually, I was reading this man, Elias Canetti, who's really clever, and he talks about our fear of being touched, and that it's a normal human thing to want that barrier, that space around you, until you get into a crowd, and then it doesn't matter, you know. And I've only read the first few pages, so I don't know what he's going to say. But it is true that there's a space around us, and apart from the kind of formal handshake, it's not courteous to touch people. But pickup artists say, touch the person's hair. And again, you create a kind of special rapport. There was a study done with librarians, and with some people, they touched the person's forearm or elbow as they handed the book over, and with others they didn't. When those people were interviewed afterwards and asked who was the most efficient librarian, the efficient librarian is the one that touches you. They just scored better, so the liking goes up.
The recruiter wants you to accept them as a new best friend.
They really do push into that space, and yeah, there could be such a thing as love at first sight. I've met people who've, the first time they saw a Ferrari Testarossa, they went, "Oh, I'm in love. I wish I'd got $300,000. And, you know, it's a feeling I certainly get for great art, love at first sight. But when another person is coming along and they are pushing as if they were your close friend, you do need to go, do they want to sell me a book, a car, a Ferrari Testarossa maybe? Or do they want to sell me a lifestyle? Do they want to tell me their religious belief? What are they selling? Because friendship is something that develops with time, and that's the best way for it. The instant friend, just add water, that's really not very likely unless the person is suffering from mania, in which case they're everybody's friend and they're just about to rip their clothes off and run down the street screaming. So you probably don't want to be their friend at that point, because you might get arrested too.
Group recruiters may test resistance by mentioning the group's name and then dismissing any negative information.
Oh, you can't believe what you see on the television. You can't believe what the newspapers say. It's all fake news. So when they reported on the trial of our leader and how he was sent to prison, that was just completely fake, and we're a wonderful group. As soon as somebody starts testing for resistance to a group or a belief, that's a definite sign that they're trying to sell you something, that all of the niceness that you've experienced from them is actually just salesmanship.
Distress may be exploited by probing to find out what is ruining the person's life.
Now, many years ago, as a young lad, I was trained in the dissemination drill, the recruiting technique of Scientology. And I wouldn't do this because it seemed to me incredibly manipulative. That when you've got somebody chatting away in a friendly way, you say, "Have you got problems in your life? Are there insurmountable difficulties that you are facing? What is your ruin?" as the Scientologists call it. And that again is to take you into a place of weakness and vulnerability, where they can offer you the solution, which we'll get to in a couple of points' time.
Fear of worsening may be played up.
Yeah, you've tried everything, but you know it'll only get worse. They might get you to talk about the failed remedies. You know, yeah, I tried homeopathy and chiropractic and voodoo and yoga, and none of it worked. Get you feeling bad, get you feeling bad, get you feeling bad. This is, again, a specific stage in Scientology recruiting called fear of worsening.
The group or relationship is offered as a solution to any problem.
Yeah, salespeople, one of the things you find in their nasty little manuals is this thing about making up a story. Oh yeah, we had somebody who had exactly that problem, and it's incredible because we sorted it out in no time flat. You know, he'd lost all of his. No, we won't go there. They're not telling you the truth. That, you know, get the details. So, what was the person called, and where did they live, and when did this happen? You know, play with them a little bit, and then say, "You're trying to sell me something, aren't you? Where were you trained?" I mean, I did do this with a sales guy. My mother needed, some years ago, 20 years ago, she needed a supporting bed, you know, one of these beds that you can have at different angles. And a guy came out and did the whole sales pitch, and at the end of it, 20 minutes or so, and I sat in the room throughout. She said, "Oh, you have to talk to my son about it." And the guy just looked at me and did the whole 20-minute sales pitch, word for word again. And I thought, it's just wrong. So I talked with him for a little while, and I'll admit it, he was crying by the time I was done with him, because I was sort of saying, you know, this isn't genuine, is it? You don't. And the bed you're selling is actually twice what it would cost me if I bought it from a shop, and you are making the commission on that. So, and he was, "Oh, I'm a Christian though." It was like, not a very good one.
Techniques are used that lead to a sense of awe, a peak experience. This is strengthened to become further.
Yeah, the techniques will include meditation. Meditation's big at the moment. We've got mindfulness, and health services the world over are recommending mindfulness. And I am going to make a somewhat critical video about mindfulness in the extraordinarily near future. I learned meditation in a Zen monastery. That sounds very fancy. It wasn't, because it was in the north of England, not in Japan or somewhere exotic. And I practiced meditation for quite some time. And I'll probably talk about that somewhere else. And it can be a very good thing. But if you've never meditated and somebody sits you down to look at a blank wall, or just sit face to face with another person, then you will experience what's called the Ganzfeld effect. And that is to say that there will be visual distortions that occur. If you put somebody in a dark room, completely dark room, within a few minutes, they will start to hear noises, they will start to feel that something is moving. Now, there's nothing wrong with them. The person who looks at the wall and sees nothing but a white wall, or sits in the dark and doesn't think anything, they do have something wrong with them, because the brain is sort of reading its own low-level feedback to, you know, make out what's going on. The hallucinations, the visual impairment, can become very severe. Somebody's face can suddenly turn dark purple when you're looking at them, this kind of thing. Alongside this, by sitting still in a place, you get a relaxation which can bring about an altered state of mind. You just feel less anxious, you feel better, and you can start to feel euphoric. You can start to feel high as a consequence, and register a peak experience. You know, wow, this is fantastic. I certainly did when I learned Zazen meditation. I had the most incredible experiences the first couple of days I was doing it. But I didn't understand that it was about my brain. It wasn't about me suddenly achieving enlightenment or supernatural powers or anything like that. It's just what your brain does when you have fixation, repetition, or mimicry. You can do it by dancing round and round. You can do it by drumming. There are all sorts of techniques that are used by groups, and it's fine. These techniques are fine. The problem is that where you get the sense of certainty that this technique was brought to you by this group, by this wise person, and you then believe the bullshit that they tell you and become fixed upon them and fixed upon getting that experience again. And the sad truth is that generally the first experience you have will be the most powerful. That you won't. I've met people who spent really literally 20 years trying to get back some moment of wonderment and awe that they felt when they first became involved in a group. Now, by reinforcing this feeling, so even though you won't get quite the same high, you will still get some kind of high from doing it, you ritualize it. And that can then lead to fervour. It leads to a kind of fanatical belief in something. You probably don't want to do that. And so better to go home right now. You might be at home, so just sit down comfortably somewhere and look at the wall and just let your thoughts kind of evaporate and go away for 5 or 10 minutes and see if I'm not right. And the great thing about this teaching is you don't have to send me any money or believe a word that I say. Just check it out and do it. And I promise I won't come round to your door with a little begging bowl afterwards. I promise.
While the person is still high from the peak experience, belief is strengthened by statements of appreciation or written testimonials.
Reinforcement. If you are a smoker and you want to give up smoking, one of the good things to do, it's good actually to be in a group of people doing it together, but putting that aside, one of the good things to do is to tell everyone you know that you've given up smoking, because then you'll lose face if you give up. Now, exactly this mechanism is working with the testimonial, the success story, the idea that, yeah, a technique will make you feel great. That will last. Usually, it'll decline within 3 days. Sorry, I've talked to literally thousands of people over the years about this. And, faith healing, this kind of stuff. You can get this rush, this buzz, the natural opioids in your system making you feel great, the adrenaline, all of that stuff. And then you'll get the fade and the collapse a few days later. So you keep buying in for more. Now, having made a testimonial means that you can be reminded that it was great, and what have you done wrong to lose that since? So you can keep chasing that particular rainbow. The crock of, what's that stuff that's at the end of rainbows? Oh, the crock of gold at the end of the rainbow can be chased for many years. And it can be a crock of something else which we're not going to mention here. Because we're very polite people.
Yeah. The recruit is drawn into what seems to be a friendly group where everyone is supportive and flattering. Seducers will be extremely friendly and considerate until they have you hooked.
Until they have you hooked. So predatory people and agents of predatory people know how to make you feel welcome and accepted. Again, the flattery, the charm. But then you find yourself the other side of it and you're working 19 hours a day in the kitchen, scrubbing the floors, or you're not sleeping properly anymore, you're not being paid any money, you can't see your children. So generally, although the group appears to be the community that you've always wished to join, you will find out fairly quickly, once you stop being in the honeymoon period, as we call it, you will end up being punished through your membership of the group. This has been an Opening Minds presentation. Did you want to say something about that?
About it being an Open Minds presentation.
Opening
Minds
presentation.
See,
it gets confusing because we also work with the Open Minds Foundation, which is a completely distinct thing. You can find an article that I wrote about seduction and recruitment on openmindsfoundation.org, their website. We have a website, openingminds.org. We have a Facebook page. We'd love you to come along and join us because basically we think that if this material is spread around the world, life will be easier for a lot of people. And we like that because we like people. And so I've been John Atack and he's been
Sam Atack.
And tweet this out and please do all the social media stuff for us so that we don't have to. And we hope to see you again very soon indeed. Thank you.